Content warning. This podcast contains bones, blood, smut, and swear words.
Act 1. Welcome, penitents. Hello and welcome to the Frontline Fifth, a Locked Tomb podcast where brand spanking new novitiates explore the Locked Tomb series for the first time, while a couple of dried-out bone witches cackle over how little they really know. We're currently reading Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and we've spent all week placing collect calls to Abigail and Magnus with nothing to show for it. So we're taking some time away from tempting ghosts with our arterial blood to take you through chapters 17 and 18. I'm Hannah, and since my bone witch tricks are not getting the job done this week, I'm deeply grateful to be joined by certified spirit magician, Marie. So, Marie, would you rather be swarmed by a vengeful horde of ghosts, murdered by one of your housemates, or fall down a ladder into an ancient necromantic bunker?
Fall down a ladder is the most likely. It also seems potentially the quickest, depending on who my housemates are. So, final answer.
Checks out. I'm realizing this might have been a little bit of a dark question, but we're just going to pan right over to our novice Lyctor trainees, Brooke and John. Brooke, what do you think? Would you rather die of murder, ghosts, or heights?
Okay, well, I think ghosts are too scary, and I do not want to die, absolutely terrified. So, crossing that one off the list. On the other hand, I cannot imagine the misery of being at fault in my own death. So I think a fall gets ruled out too. So
Brooke doesn't want to be ashamed.
I guess that leaves murder.
Oh, God. We'll start plotting.
All right, John, what about you? Death by fall, epic haunting, or just regular old stabbing?
I think similar to Marie, it's most likely going to be falling, just due to personal circumstance. And also I think that would be my preferred way to go comparatively to ghosts and or murder.
Just for the record, I would rather die by hippo. But don't you worry, dear listener, because we're all safely bundled up.
Wait.
Statistically, that's actually probably the most likely if you're around a hippo.
Does that even fit into a category? Is that murder?
Why that does not seem like a quick way, Hannah.
Quick is not the point.
Oh.
I would like my death to be memorable.
Wow.
But don't worry, dear listener, because there are no hippos here, and we are all safely bundled up in the Canaan House kitchen, sipping tea and drawing mustaches on a catatonic column mashed. But before we get too deep into the mystery, I do want to hear all of your first impressions of this week's chapters.
Oh my God. I have two things. My first impression is, again, of Ianthe. Ianthe is gross as shit.
Yes.
Oh, God. Disgusting. We'll get into it. And then number two, teacher basically really wants us to believe that a horde of vengeful ghosts are rampaging around Canaan House. But I am still rearing for this to be a whodunit and not a whatdunit.
Again, Brooke, pro-murder, as we have reestablished over and over. What about you, John?
I am going down a rabbit hole of rampant speculation. I'm very excited for the end of the episode because I felt like either I was cooking and I feel like I figured some things out, or I'm so wildly off base that you guys are going to have content for the next few weeks just based on how dumb it is. So
I'm so fucking excited.
Could not be more excited. I'm so thrilled. But Marie, do you have any first impressions of these two chapters?
The teens kill me every time.
My big impression from this on a reread was similar. I was like, everybody's sitting there and talking about what's going on, and no one is comforting the literal children whose effective parents have died. What the actual fuck?
Except for Gideon.
Gideon's good people. She's got huge biceps. She's good people. I don't know why I involved the biceps.
Well, it's important. It's an important feature of Gideon.
All right. Well, like Brooke, I'm excited about the whodunit energy, and I, as someone who watches too many police procedurals, am itching to go examine the bodies in the freezer. But before I follow Pal and Cam to the morgue, let's get into all the failed spirit summoning that a girl could wish for in Episode 9, Chalk and Ink and Blood. Act 2. There are monsters here.
This section
of Frontline Fifth is safe for anyone who hasn't read past Chapter 18 in Gideon the Ninth.
Let's recap. Chapter 17. Everybody tries to raise the dead. The 8th house siphons souls. Teacher is in a panic. Chapter 18. A shitty tea party with a bigger body count. The great debate. Murder or ghosts?
Well, last we left our intrepid heroes, they had found the crumpled bodies of Abigail Pent and Magnus Quinn at the foot of the facility ladder. So basically, these chapters start. Over the next couple hours, almost every necromancer in all of Canaan House goes down there and works to try and call back the spirits of the dead scions of the 5th house.
Notably absent is the 2nd house.
Right.
Sorry, I hate the 2nd house so much. Freaking narcs. We'll get into it. Anyway, the first thing that everybody does, right, is to just try and tempt the ghosts back, because somehow fresh blood is a really good tempter for ghosts.
Except for Harrow, who knows that she's only good for bone magic.
And this is true. This is like, but even Harrow actually supposedly tries until she passes out in a puddle of her own blood.
No, it says Harrow did not open herself up.
She tries to tempt them back, but she deliberately doesn't try to do it with flesh magic because she sucks at flesh magic.
Yes, that's exactly right. So she doesn't spill any of her own blood. She does try and, do other things to get them back. And everybody is trying other things to get them back. Like Isaac and Jean Marie are so desperate to spill enough blood to have them back that they're just stabbing Jean Marie over and over until they have to be taken away. The 6th house is kind of just doing police procedural stuff.
I loved this on a reread. It was actually a re-listen, is thinking about it of the first thing that you see about Pal is that he's got a fat marker pen. And I was like, oh, he's down there with a Sharpie.
100%. And they are people who carry Sharpies with them. And I love that for them.
They have lab tape. They have enough flashlights to rig them up so that you can see things. They're sketching things. They've got lab notebooks. I was like, they're dorks. They're our people.
I'm assuming that the 6th is now like CSI Miami is essentially what I'm picturing.
100%.
I think it's maybe a little more SVU. Okay, so Palamides in these 2 chapters comes off as such a cross between a nerd and a theater kid.
Yes.
Again, my people.
Absolutely your people. I'm probably all of our people.
I also adore Camilla because she's also she sees the teens just absolutely crumbling. And all she does is just take the knives away like you would a little kid and then put Band-Aids on things.
Yeah, she just comes in with rubber bandages and she's exactly.
Just nope.
I mean, so the other thing that's kind of cool down here is we get a little bit more of a sense of what other kinds of necromancy looks like, right? So up till now, because we've been 9th house scions, we've really been thinking in terms of skeleton magic. But Brooke, you mentioned Ianthe. Do you want to tell us what Ianthe is doing?
She's literally chewing and consuming the flesh, the hair, the nails of Nibirius, her prince. It's foul. The man doesn't flinch, apparently. This is normal, and it's awful. Ew. It's cannibalism. Mm-hmm. Cannibalism magic. Wait, they called it animophilia in the files in the back. When I read that, I was just like, don't know what that means. Could be werewolves. No, it's eating flesh. That's disgusting.
Yeah. Ianthe's pretty gross.
Ugh.
But you see flesh magic.
Oh my God. This whole paragraph with Ianthe is absolutely viscerally disgusting. They talk about her after consuming Nibirius and getting to work. Every so often, she's spitting out a stray hair. Ugh, she's got hairballs.
Gross.
Nice. It's pretty horrifying. And actually, one thing I really like here is that also Gideon mentions that despite the fact that Ianthe always mocks Coronabeth for being stupid, Corona is not breaking a blood sweat. It's just Ianthe working hard. So
I can't tell that Coronabeth is, actually working hard, or if she's just too vain to be showing off her blood sweat in front of a crowd.
Fair enough. She's like, I'll do that on my own time. Thank you.
I'm not eating people and showing off blood sweat in front of all of you people. I have an image to maintain.
Also, in terms of what different magic looks like, it seems like the 6th house kind of magic looks much more like seance-y type of stuff, like drawing diagrams and stuff.
Do you think he was actually using magic in that moment? Kind of felt like he was just doing detective-y shit.
I can't tell.
I think that, like, the diagrams and stuff are part of, like, the trying to call ghosts back.
It's interesting though, because I think it could go either way. So one thing they mentioned that I love is that they're putting pieces of tape at important spots, and the way it's described is as though they're putting tape at like, diagram drawing, seance level, like important spots,
markers.
But I think you could equally look at it as like little markers for
crime
evidence.
Scene markers.
Exactly.
That's what I thought it was.
I think that they're doing both. I think they're doing crime scene investigation, but I think like when you see him at the beginning and it's kind of like almost like a flashback, whatever, when he like gives up, if like what he's sketching is like diagrams for like theorems to try and bring back the spirits.
I do think it's funny that this whole like beginning, I mean, it's very written like in the passive voice of like this happened. We're not kind of actively walking through this chapter. We're kind of like recapping what happened, and it makes it kind of funny because like you basically have this group of like, I don't know, teenagers into their early 20s, and they just show up and they're like crime scene experts that like know how to like measure things, mark a crime scene, and Camilla's there drawing crime scene graphs and figures and like getting the lighting right. Like it's wild.
There goes the cat. Jail.
Jail.
Okay.
Goodbye, kitty cat.
Yeet.
Cat has lost privileges.
Diego did lose privileges, and that's because he's a huge fan of the podcast, but we do have to record, so we'll keep going just as our necromancers are going to. Basically, everything fails. They can't tempt Abigail and Magnus back. And so then the 8th house comes down the ladder. Do any of you want to kind of describe for me what Silas Octakizaron's magic looks like?
He basically can siphon souls to fuel his necromancy, right? Like it's unclear if it's like a switcheroo where he's sending one soul kind of deeper into the afterlife to try to bring one back, or if he's just sucking all the power up to use that to fuel things to pull the soul out. So it seems like a little bit of both, but maybe we'll get clarification on that later, and that fuels my rampant conspiracy theories for later. But I guess this will probably be spoilers for you guys to answer this, but is it an exchange, or is it just like fuel for the fire? Do we know that yet, or could it be either?
Do we know?
I think it's really unclear in this chapter. All we know is kind of what Gideon's experiencing, right? So Silas goes up, puts his hand on his cavalier, and the cavalier kind of turns gray, right? Like all the color fades out of him. And then Silas is pulling so much energy that he starts kind of pulling energy out of the room, right? The lights are flickering. Gideon starts to get cold. Dulcinea is about to faint. Like Silas is just pulling energy from everyone. And even then, like the only thing that happens is sparks emerge in Abigail's body.
Well, it starts twitching.
I know, it does start twitching a little bit. But Dulcinea is literally about to faint because, presumably Silas is siphoning off of everyone at this point. Yeah. And so Gideon goes over and catches her, and Protesilaus just does the noble thing, walks straight up to Silas and punches him in the nose, which I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah, big fan.
Yeah. So at that point, Teacher shows up. And Teacher doesn't actually really show up. Teacher refuses to go all the way into the facility. So he's calling down from like the top rungs of the ladder and telling them, children, you need to come upstairs. He's way too scared to go down more than a few steps, but he demands that everyone goes back upstairs and brings the bodies. He's deeply terrified.
Well, and he says something that you can't empty anybody down there. So that's like why I don't know if we ever really know totally what the 8th house is doing. My impression of what the 8th house is doing is that they are pulling the power of their cavalier. Like they're literally pulling on their life force, but they're pulling on their life force so much that it like makes the cavalier like close to death. So it like sends that cavalier's soul kind of somewhere else. Because Column is like catatonic for a while, right? And then that would mean that's why Teacher is so freaked out, is because he's saying you don't want bodies without souls in them down in the facility. So not only should you not be siphoning down there, but you shouldn't leave the dead bodies down there either.
Yep. Yep.
Wait, are you
Yep.
familiar with Abhorsen, the series by Garth Nix?
One of my all-time favorites.
I reread that regularly.
Also just an incredible necromancer book. But it just reminded me kind of the style of one of the bells that they have, where it sends whoever rings the bell further into death and brings a spirit farther out. And that's kind of
Yes.
what this reminded me of. Because that's what I was thinking of, is he's sending the spirit.
But I don't think he's doing siphoning specifically for the purpose.
It's just pure power. It's just power.
Yeah, I think it's just for power. I don't think
Okay.
that it's always to do spirit summoning.
Okay, maybe not always, but in this case, like, we have some clues about, like, Silas saying that he's gone to colder climes and that he's come back through more ghosts or something like that. It was insinuating, at
Yeah,
least in
like
this
a weird
case,
thing.
that Column was walking amongst the dead.
Yeah. So I will say that we get a little bit more insight into this later in Gideon. It may even be in our next episode. But all of these are really good theories. And I think I think the Eighth has a particularly interesting format of necromancy. But Teacher, demands that everybody goes upstairs. He's been recruited by the second house, who,
Of
rather
course.
than being helpful, decided to narc on everyone. But everybody like drags the bodies upstairs. It's a huge ordeal. They actually have to physically drag Column upstairs because, as you said, he's catatonic. He's not responding at all. And they all end up upstairs in like kind of the cafeteria area. Gideon says it was weirdly like their first day in Canaan House, in both suspicion and dullness, just with a bigger body count.
Yeah, so
And I
sad.
love that for them.
Yeah, sitting around with the weird tea, looking at everybody, being like, who the fuck are you? Who was it? Like, do I really trust you? And it's right after, literally hours after they've just had this almost friendly gathering.
Meet and greet party. That's so cute.
Yeah.
It is a really big shift. It may even be in the same room where this anniversary party happened, right? So they're all just sitting around at tables feeling very different and feeling like the people who brought them together are now literally dead, right? I mean, the people who were doing the most to actually kind of synthesize everyone into a group might have been Abigail and Magnus. So the second house over and over wants to reiterate that they are in charge, right? Judith's entire thing is, I am a cohort captain. We should call in the cohort for backup. And I am now taking over the investigation because I am a captain and I am in charge. And Teacher tells her over and over that you can't have off-world communication. It's absolutely forbidden. It is the sacred rule.
Whatever that means. God, how vague.
Which still always makes me be like, what the fuck is going on? Because how would you tell people then that there were lictors?
Well, but I guess you could, like, once you are a lictor, maybe you travel off-world, and from off-world you can then, like, contact other
But
people.
how are you going to travel off-world? There's not any shuttles anymore.
The shuttles were
You're
dumped.
making some good points. Some good points. But either way, basically Judith and Teacher are going back and forth with the same two lines, where Judith's like, I'm a captain. And Teacher's like, yeah, sucks to suck. But everybody else sort of gets into a debate, and the debate is both about what to do, but also about what caused this. And that's what we were intimating at the beginning of this episode, right? So Teacher, 100% sure that it is ghosts. It's just ghosts on ghosts on ghosts. Meanwhile, like, other people are questioning, is this straight up murder? Did someone murder Abigail and Magnus? Some people are pointing out that it's a long fucking way to fall, and that actually it could be a situation where it's more innocuous than people think. So there's a lot of like,
Yeah, but
rabble,
pretty
rabble,
much
rabble, rabble.
nobody believes that it's actually an accident. Everybody's willing to believe that it's either murder or I don't think anybody actually believes Teacher's thing about ghosts.
No, Jean-Marie's like, she was a spirit magician. Like, if it were ghosts, like, insert presumably interaction with ghost here.
Right, like Abigail might have been the most equipped to deal with ghosts as the best spirit magician in the
Yeah,
house.
but is she good at dealing with ghosts on a ladder? Many people just like.
No multitasking here.
So in the middle of this, the eighth house lives up to how shitty they always are by being like, I realize that everything is going to shit, but we are going to duel Protessalauus for punching me in the nose. So that kind of gets like pushed off to the side.
God.
It's pretty classic.
Is the eighth the worst or the second the worst? Who's worse?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
Who's worse? Who's worse?
I think that the average person would say the 8th. I don't know what my deal is with the second house. Part of it is just this like
Oppositional
reiterating the
defiant
same statement. Actually, it might be that you're not wrong. I do not do well with authority. But I also don't love that like she never comes up with anything new. She basically just says the same thing over and over. She's like
a little parrot.
She has one line and it's the cohort should be called in. The cohort should be called in.
I have authority. You're like, what are you going to do with that authority? All you could say is one thing.
Yeah, and you don't have authority just because you're fucking second house. Like, you have to earn authority in a vacuum.
You have no power here.
Exactly.
Everybody else is like, y'all know that we are also like huge deals in our own houses, right? Like just because your second house, Nibirius is like, you're not better than a prince of the third. And Judith is like, yes, I definitely am. And Corona's like, calm the fuck down. We all used to go to each other's birthday parties. Can we just pretend for 2 seconds that we're human? So Corona actually asks here a really important question. She says, who even had access to the facility? And the truth comes out, so the 8th says they had a key. They told the 5th about the keys. We already know that the 9th house has a key. The 6th house has one. The 7th house has one. And then, they go on with their conversation until teacher indeed stirs the pot and is like, not all of you answered that question, and is just raising his eyebrows at Ianthe.
Amazing! Oh my god, what was that? What was the point? Like, he seems always so like kind of friendly and innocuous, and like drops little clues here and there. And what is this? The gossip level here of...
I'm convinced he loves drama. He's a gossip queen. I love teacher.
Amazing.
But you're right. So who's the one more person who has it?
Ianthe.
Yes, without her sister or her cavalier knowing.
That's the fucking key, right? Like, Nibirius and Coronabeth turn towards Ianthe and are like, what the actual fuck?
Isn't this the part where they describe it like a tennis match of everybody's getting like a crick in their neck?
Yeah. It also like, I feel like this is very, very embarrassing for both Nibirius and Coronabeth. Coronabeth has actually opened this by saying, who had access to the facility? We didn't even know it existed.
Uh-huh.
And teacher's like, really?
Yeah.
Who else had a key?
She didn't know it existed.
The third house did.
John's making a stirring motion with his finger. It's an audio medium, John.
He's moved up to like cauldron level stirring. All of this ends without a lot of resolution. Palamides gets to a point where he just reminds everyone that we all need to calm down and figure out what happened. And that the first thing we need to do is examine the bodies and actually do kind of an investigation. He also says something that I really love, which is that we should all agree that information is the best gift we can give one another.
And Harrow shits all over that idea immediately.
Yeah, I was like, the fuck you talking about? I'm not telling anybody anything.
Yeah.
It's glorious. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's also at the same time. So I am a person who likes collaborative board games. That is the kind of board game I like. I want us to win definitively together. And so this whole book always like pisses me off because the whole time they're just treating everything like a competition. And Palamides is finally, and I'm so appreciative that he sits there and he's like, actually, we could just talk to one another like out loud in, back and forth kind of dialogue shape.
Anyone who doesn't is shady.
Yeah, and everybody else is like, yeah, sounds great. Let's leave. With like the third house, like it says, like they leave like in like the way of 3 people about to have a really horrible fight.
Oh, yes. And in my heart of hearts, teacher sneaks after them and listens because he fucking loves a gossip.
Yep.
But at this point, indeed, the party breaks up, right? The third house goes off in a snit. Cam and Pal, after a quick word to Harrow, go to examine the bodies. The 2nd and 7th houses actually follow along to go to see the bodies. I really love Gideon says that Dulcinea could out-morbid even I can't even remember who, but
The 9th.
And then basically there's not very many people left in the room. There's the 4th house teens, there's the 9th house, there's teacher. And then there's Silas and Colum Asht, who all of us had forgotten about because he has been sitting there catatonic this entire time. And so Silas calls him back. And just like Brooke said, makes a comment about how he's actually come back through stranger ghosts, which is intriguing. And Colum does come back.
Well, because teacher asks him, like, oh, he's going to have a really hard time coming back here. And Silas says something like he's come back through stranger ghosts and colder climes. And I'm like, so what has the eighth house been doing?
Right. Like, what colder climes are there than these? Is like, how often are you sending this person away for like hours at a time?
Either Silas like doesn't understand the gravity of that place.
What does it mean for his body to be corrupted? It says he has never let his body become corrupted. What the fuck?
Didn't we make like did we comment on it earlier about like we don't want to empty somebody for fear that they become a nest for something else?
But that's in the
it's
facility.
possible that it works anywhere.
Also, you can imagine like a scenario where like he could have become corrupted in the facility and they just haven't like popped out.
Oh.
Yeah. So, there's that. But Colum comes right back and is like, hi. And Silas is like, you're late.
It's like all he says to him, you're getting late. It's been 15 minutes. And then you're like, all that happened in 15 minutes?
Basically, before Gideon can leave, the last thing that happens is that Jean-Marie Chateur, stained with tears and blood from earlier probably, goes up to Gideon and asks if she knows anything. Says, you have to tell us, you have to, if you know anything. And Gideon breaks her, supposed vow of silence and says, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. And Jean-Marie doesn't even really clock that she's spoken. They're just in so much pain. God, when I was 14, I for sure thought I ran the world. But like when you look at a 14-year-old as an adult, like that's a fucking kid. That's a little kid who just lost their effective parents.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I can't even believe. Like my kid is 14.
I mean,
right?
It's devastating.
But also she basically says like she went to Gideon because Magnus liked her.
Which I actually think is incredible, right? I mean, we kind of talked about this last time. Is like Magnus is a super outgoing person trying to include everyone. But what you're learning here is that actually Gideon was even kind of special. Like he actually liked her. Yeah. Well, Gideon and Harrow, who is somehow in a snit. I feel like she's the least, she has the least cause to be in a snit, but she's in a bit of a snit as they walk out. Thoughts, Brooke? I see your face.
Yeah. She's in the snit of somebody who is like super smart and like she says it. She's like, I'm sick of their slowness, sick to death. She's just like so impatient. She's tired of like I have felt this way in meetings that went on too long. And people are just like talking about insane shit and I have so much work to do and why are we still here? I completely understand that feeling.
I also feel like she's probably annoyed because their lead just got reduced significantly over the other houses because now everyone knows about the facility. Everyone's probably going to have keys. And now it's evened up a little bit. Granted, they're still ahead because they have the key, but yeah.
Yeah, do you think this is like video game style where like, I don't know, like another crimson key or whatever color they called it, like shows up if somebody else does the same challenge? Or do you find the same key in other places? Like, are they Easter eggs hidden around the facility versus like they regenerate every time a new necromancer comes with their cav into the bone room, into the...
Winnowing and...
Yeah, you're right. Like any of those are completely reasonable things that may be happening. And we have no information at this point. The only thing we know is that they have a key. So they're going to go look for a door.
I think they're going to the Chamber of Secrets door.
The one that Gideon hid?
Yep. I don't know why I feel that way.
Because that would be good writing.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I feel like it's not spoiling. That's basically just Chekhov's gun. Like, you show us a door, it's going to get opened.
Well, the question is now or later?
True.
So how far? We are... My Kindle tells me 41% of the way through. So maybe that door is not due to show up quite yet.
I guess we'll find out. Gideon and I are still working on grasping the implications of everything we've been told here. So I'm going to take a break to update my murder board. But first, it's time for our game.
Oh, shit. I forgot. There was one more thing.
Okay.
You know when, I think it's like teacher or something says, here there be monsters? That's what you put on old-timey maps when you're off the edge of the map.
Oh, so this is a meme watch. Is this a meme watch thing? What is this? Literary references?
Count it. We had Shakespeare last week, so I feel like Here They Be Dragons counts.
It's like Here There Be Monsters or Here There Be Dragons. That's what you put on an old map when you're off the edge of the map. You don't know what there are. You don't know what there is.
Oh, that's kind of funny.
Right? So it's like you are now in the part of the plot.
Instead of saying, I don't know what's there, you you say there's something super dangerous.
Yeah. So it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, it could be that there are monsters there, or it could just be almost an allusion to the fact of you are now in uncharted territory. Everybody's in uncharted territory when they go into the facility.
Interstitial. An admirable attempt at humor in these trying times. Well, friends, we may have failed to bring back Abigail and Magnus's ghosts, so thank the Emperor, our resident spirit magician, Marie, is here to boost our revenant knowledge with this week's game. So, I'll turn it over to her. Marie, do your thing.
Oh, okay, all right, Lee. In a world that can regularly call back the recently or maybe not so recently dead, we don't know, like, if they have famous ghosts, if you can theoretically call back. But in our world, we definitely do have famous ghosts, especially of the literary kind. So I'm going to test your revenant recognition in this week's game. Name that ghost.
Oh, boy.
Woo! Yes, that's what I was hoping for. Thank you, Hannah. So I'm starting out with a literary category for ghosts, and I was going to order this from ancient to modern, but then I didn't want to give you any help at all. So, in no particular order, let's go. These are like crossword type hints. And whoever figures it out, just shout it out and let's see.
Oh, God.
So, scared of chickens and hides in women's closets and leaves the dirty work to a famously indecisive main character who talks too much.
I don't have
Scared of
I don't have the
chickens?
foggiest idea.
Neither do I.
Hold on.
Maybe go with famously indecisive main character.
All right, who's a famously indecisive main character?
Of a play.
A play? Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
Oh, Hamlet.
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 It's Hamlet.
Well, so Hamlet is the famously indecisive, to be or not to be.
Yeah. And
So
the ghost is his
we're
dad.
talking the ghost of his father.
Yeah.
Scared of chickens.
Well, because in his first appearance, he disappears when the cock crows, and then at like another one of his appearances, he appears to Hamlet when in Hamlet's mother's closet.
You fucking nerd. You absolute dirty nerd bird.
Love that for you.
Yeah,
Shakespeare is very, very bad.
We're doing well so far.
Yeah,
so
we're doing
Nice
great,
job.
we're doing
Good job, Hannah. Good job, Hannah. We should give you a round of applause for that.
Okay. Here's another one. What if the ghosts were the friends we made along the way? Is this a good plot twist? I don't know, because I have never seen the movie. I am going to watch it with my kids later, engaged by their reactions.
okay, I feel like I have this one. You guys have this one?
No.
Nope.
No idea.
I am basing this exclusively on the fact that you've never seen the movie, but you want to watch it with your kids. I think it's The Sixth Sense.
100%.
Yes.
I've
haven't
never
seen The
seen The
Sixth
Sixth
Sense.
Sense either. I just
You're shitting me.
no.
Oh my God. We maybe should watch it all
I just
together,
know
and
it's been
I will just be
spoiled.
the one person who's seen it. I know everybody knows the spoiler. It is actually that good, though. It's like a good enough movie that it is watchable knowing everything.
That's what I've heard, is that it's good enough even if you know the spoiler, and I don't think my kids know the spoiler. So I want to watch it with them to gauge their reaction. Also, my children somehow had never seen Princess Bride yet. So I watched it with them last night.
Oh my God, incredible.
Yeah.
Big fan.
And they were like, this is the fucking cringiest thing ever. And I was like, yes, but you enjoyed it, and I know you did.
They're going to be going around asking if anybody wants a peanut.
That's what I was just about to say, Brooke.
I mean, I probably didn't make it better by like quoting
75% of the movie.
Yeah,
as we're watching.
it's really hard to watch that movie without.
I quote Billy Crystal's character all the time.
I'm mostly dead.
You did that in an earlier episode.
So this is actually my favorite is quoting his wife because I love, I'm not a witch, I'm your wife.
Humpadink, humpadink, humpadink. I've also said the phrase mutton, lettuce, tomato, and no one's ever gets it.
Oh, MLTs are great.
One more thing while we're still completely off topic. I'm a millennial woman on the internet, and so I have been incessantly introduced to everything about the 2005 Pride and Prejudice, but never watched it. And I finally watched that with my children as well, and that was an impeccable experience.
Oh, that must have been uncomfortable.
No, it was great when Darcy came to propose the first time, and he was like, I told you! He was in love with her! Oh, incredible. Anyway, okay. Next one. A bloodthirsty trans icon with a talent for seeing the future who gives advice to those who never listen. Nothing.
What? No, okay, Hannah, now you know how I feel about the last two. Who is this?
I am so proud of myself with this one.
I also have no idea.
Also, when I give you the answer, probably everybody's going to be like, who the fuck are you talking about? Tiresias the blind prophet from the Odyssey.
Okay.
Nobody remembers this.
Not even a little bit.
Never had to read the Odyssey.
Oh,
Really?
I definitely did. I took a whole class on Greek mythology. And
Yeah, the Odyssey is a banger. So he's a ghost in the Odyssey. That's why he's bloodthirsty. So Odysseus at some point needs help, like, getting past, like, Scylla and Charybdis, I think, and, like, the cows of, like, the sun god or whatever. And so he gets told to go spill some blood and tempt back the ghosts. And he even, I think, talks to, like, the ghost of his mom or something. That's, like, how he finds out, like, what's going on back home. But Tiresias gives him advice that nobody listens to. Tiresias is also the dude who told Oedipus what was going to happen.
He's just profiting all over the place.
Right. And the trans icon thing is because sometime early on in life, he, like, whacked a couple of snakes and made Hera mad, and she turned him into a woman.
So he's lived all sorts of lives. That's amazing.
Wow, you have a talent for synopsising these characters in a way that is absolutely uninterpretable to me.
Okay, sorry.
I was going to say, no, these descriptions are really good, though. We're so bad at spirit magic. Oh my God, you guys, we're bone people.
Okay. How about this one? Hopefully this one's obvious. Who knows? Maybe I'm really bad at this. The fourth of three famous ghosts who is wrapped in chains and foretelling a sleepless night.
Okay, well, the three famous ghosts absolutely are. This is Christmas Carol, right? Like past,
Gotta
present,
be.
future. But what the fuck is the fourth? I don't remember this.
Maybe it's like Scrooge himself? Shit. Wait, isn't it
Past,
his friend
past,
or his
present,
business
and
partner?
Future. Yeah, and then,
Shit.
oh God, I haven't seen it in so long. It's been,
I'm Googling.
Cheater!
Wait, hold on. Isn't it Marley?
It's Marley. It's the ghost of Marley.
Oh my God, I forgot about
Didn't make
that.
it all the way to Google.
Yeah, because everybody forgets about Marley.
Oh, wow. Okay, that was good. That was
all right,
doable.
we're doing
and
better.
that was my
We're
failure.
ramping up.
Okay, last one. Supernatural help is probably the only way that I would ever make a usable pot.
A usable pot.
Pop culture reference, the only scene that I know from this movie. The only scene that anybody knows from this movie. I bet nobody has ever watched this movie.
A usable pot.
That makes it hard.
Oh, God, I am so good. Why are you two even here? It's Ghost.
Yes.
It's got to be Whoopi Goldberg-ish ghosting ghost.
Yeah, exactly. The most memed ghost movie scene ever, because you don't even need to know the character names. You just need to know that Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore are very hot.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, Marie. I'm not on the internet enough to be able to handle
Can I
this.
also share that the way that I got there was as follows?
Yes.
This reminded me of an episode of Community where they're taking a pottery class.
Exactly,
And the one
exactly.
rule is you're not allowed to ghost.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I
I don't know
like
why I'm here, Hannah. I really
at
don't know why I'm
least,
here.
Is
Yeah.
at the fifth house spirit level talker of knowledge of ghosts.
As a reminder, we were brought into this series upon request, not because we were already part of this world.
By our own volition, just for the people keeping track out there. We volunteered for this. We were not coerced in any way.
And we are so grateful. So considering how that went for ghost level knowledge, let's see if you can recognize places that ghosts hang out.
You've got this, Queens.
Okay. Don't worry if you lose your head here. Maybe a spot of tea would put it right again.
I think we get this one. I think
Gotta be the Tower of
yeah,
London.
it's gotta be the Tower of London.
Good job.
I desperately wish you could have seen Brooke in that moment. She's snapping up in the air. She's like getting ready to go. It was fabulous.
Finally got one.
Okay. I mean, why wouldn't you want to spend a night at a charming bed and breakfast like this? I just would keep an eye on any wood chopping activities.
Lumber.
Brooke's doing horror ASMR right now.
It's giving like The Shining,
Yeah,
but
Not yet.
don't know.
Not yet.
Okay, all right.
and it's not Psycho, right? Because Psycho was a motel. Wood chopping activities.
It was a house with a famous murder, with a famous double murder, and they've turned it into a bed and breakfast.
You're gonna
This
say
is like
it's
the one place out of these that I would legitimately say is probably fucking haunted, and like there's no way in hell. There's no way.
Tell us about it, Marie. Tell us.
This is the Lizzie Borden house. So Lizzie Borden is the axe murderer, like the famous double axe murderer, and she like got away with it, or she was acquitted of it. But yeah, and it even had a little poem that went with it of Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks, and when she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41.
This lady was born in the 1800s.
I love this for her. Once you know you're good at something, you should just keep going with it. You know,
Yeah.
if you're like, I have axe murder talent, commit.
Yeah. It was probably over inheritance things. It was like a stepmother, not her mother. Her father was famously super stingy.
So do we support this for her?
I don't know.
Look, here's the question. After they were dead, did she puppet them for years so that they would leave her house and nobody would know?
She did not do that. Maybe we would support her more if she did.
Did they have it coming? Would we have done the same?
Thank you, Brooke.
That was Chicago for those of you listening at home.
Okay. How about this? Was it really haunted and an inspiration for literature, or was it just spooky in the off season and now everybody thinks it's haunted?
Is this an Agatha Christie one?
Hannah said it earlier.
This one has to be the Shining Hotel,
Yep.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
I was thinking Beach Town, but yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the Stanley Hotel in Estes, Colorado. So it was the inspiration for the hotel in The Shining, just because it was really spooky in the off season, and now everybody claims it's like the most haunted place, and it's like it's probably not fucking haunted.
Ooh. Dude, I'm learning a lot. I hope I can answer crossword questions better after this.
Okay, honestly, this is the one that I would expect to actually be the most haunted, especially even with tourists still crawling all over it years later. And I can't imagine hearing ghostly cheers and noping the hell out if I ever visited.
I am saying the Colosseum in Rome.
I was
Ding,
thinking
ding, ding,
Coliseum
ding,
too. Okay, cool. Excellent.
I'm very glad I got that because I think about Rome every day.
Exactly. That one was for you, John.
Amazing.
See, like claiming that the Tower of London is haunted, I'm like, there's no way with all of the energy of tourists climbing all over it for years and years and years that it's still haunted. But I can actually totally believe that the Colosseum would still be haunted because the same touristy energy would feed that same ghostly energy. You know what I mean?
That's true because, it was basically a tourist attraction even then.
Yeah.
Well, now that I'm sufficiently terrified of the inevitable tide of ghosts that lives in my 100-year-old house, our European listeners are laughing themselves silly that 100 years old is old in this country, but it is. I think it's time for us to figure out what, if any, ghosts we're dealing with in Canaan House. That's right. It's time for rampant speculation. Act 3. Something out of place. Exempli Gratia, a horde of vengeful ghosts. Now is the time when we ask our budding spirit magicians and part-time gumshoes to give us their conspiracy theories. So, Brooke and John, what the fuck is happening? And boy, am I excited for this because John seems like...
Yeah. he's raring to go. Honestly, my ideas have not really developed from last week, and so I genuinely just want to hand the mic over to John and hear what he's cooking up.
Okay, cook.
Okay, so we've learned so many things about necromancy in this chapter. So generally speaking, it seems like souls can take over bodies and or corrupt them if they're empty vessels. And the ninth is not a reliable narrator at all. And so we really don't really have any confirmation that any of these people could actually be who they say they are. They could just be the body replaced with somebody else's soul and or corrupted. And my current conspiracy theories are two people. One is Corona Beth, because she's not doing necromancy. She didn't seem like she was doing much of necromancy, so maybe she's not actually the person she's supposed to be. And then two is Dulcinea. Is Dulcinea who she is? She's supposed to be dead already. Why didn't they, if they can do this, why haven't they switched her body with somebody else, and or has she been replaced or moved in, had her spirit moved around?
Oh my God.
And then, is this how lictors stay alive for so long, is they just transfer their spirits into new bodies? And is that why, and then after time, is it just get harder and harder for the lictors to come back from the dead into a new body, which would make them reborn, all the time? And then Cannon House is where they figured all of this out, and that's why there's a horde of ghosts down there. It's all the bodies they've been using over time to fuel this whole thing.
Aren't ghost spirits?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They've emptied. They have to, if they're going to get a new body, they have to throw the spirit that's in it somewhere. And so they threw the spirit out, and that's where they figured out how to do this. And that's why there's a horde of angry ghosts down there. It's where they've been using all the bodies. That's my conspiracy theory. And then the second thing is, it seems like there's some type of energy release, some type of necromantic energy when people die. And I imagine that it's probably that's something we learned, right? Is that the military goes in, they kill people, and then they use that to raise, right? There's some form of energy when people die is something that it's been alluded to. And so now we just had a very, very prominent necromancer and her cavalier die in the facility. And I imagine that released a lot of necromantic energy, and we don't really get to see what happened or if that was used at all. So maybe that was used to fuel something. Maybe the ghost did it to try to get closer to the real world. I don't know. That's my conspiracy theory, is that there might be switcheroos happening. Number two, this is where we figured out necromancy, and that's why there's hordes of ghosts down there. They've been using the bodies for things, and maybe that's how lictors work. So that's my rampant speculation.
Oh wow, that you sure are cooking. That's a lot of food for thought.
Oh yeah, that was the Thanksgiving feast. Pals on pals.
I still think Teacher might be the emperor.
I think he's a lictor. Because he's calling all the people there children. He's been around for years and years and years. The man's old. The question is he 1,000, 500 years, 1,000 years, or 10,000 years?
Also, we still don't know where the lictors are, right? Some of them are still alive, correct?
They would be with in my head, they're with the emperor, who may or may not still be alive as well. And we know that the emperor, while he should be on Earth, is not, for reasons unknown. But we don't know where the hell he would have gone.
Wait, do we know he's not on Earth?
Yeah, they kind of told us that he wasn't allowed to return to Canaan House. I guess that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not on Earth.
Interesting.
And then if there's no off-world messaging, that's a sacred rule. Does it not apply to the emperor who sends out letters to inform people of, I don't know. Anyway. Anyway. Dude, John, that is some rampant speculation that certainly passes a bit of my sniff testing. Terrifying. I want to chew on that a bit more in the next chapters.
Well, I guess we'll see if any of that happens next time when John and Brooke return next week to find out what door that chunky red key unlocks in Gideon the Ninth, chapters 19 and 20.
And if you, dear listener, are like Brooke and myself reading along for the first time, make sure you find our reading calendar on our website, frontlinefifth.podbean.com, or follow us on Instagram or TikTok, which are both linked in our show notes. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And if you didn't like it, feel free to lie. Now, head off to sleep, my baby necros. Mommy and Daddy, which feels weird to call you guys, have some deep spoilers to discuss.
Oh, come on, John, you liked it a little. Get in, losers. We're going speculating.
Warning. This portion of the podcast is 98% spoilers and 2% snickering.
Seriously, we will spoil anything and everything in the series up through Nona the Ninth. If that's not what you want, turn back now.
Hello, beautiful.
Okay.
Oh, man. So there's a lot to talk about today, Marie, but I actually think we should start with do you want to chat about John's rampant speculation?
He's so fucking close and so fucking far.
I know he's going in the wrong direction, but he's like got all of the pieces and why things matter, you know, like that souls, you know, are a potential source of power, that there may be kind of exchange of souls energy. I also, frankly, I would read his book where people are just hopping bodies continuously.
Yeah, that
which
sounds
is
like so much more fucked up in some ways.
Depends. It's not your best friend that you murdered so you can use them as a battery.
I mean, that's pretty awful too.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
boy.
one of them is like awful in the terms of you become a soulless, awful person because you're always seeing other people as commodities. And the other is that you live with self-hatred and an unbelievable level of guilt and self-hatred for, 10,000 years. And what does that do to you instead?
Yeah, I think it's probably not great for you one way or another.
No,
I mean,
probably not.
As a general rule, don't use other people as things.
What a crazy idea, Hannah.
I know. Should I start a religion? That's the only precept. Yeah, it was pretty funny to hear. It also is just funny that he picked up so hardcore on the siphoning. Because, of course, we know that siphoning is something that's gonna leave a hole that something can come and climb into. And that's sort of where the devil comes from in that shows up near the end of the book and then will show up again in Nona.
Well, and it also makes me wonder what it is exactly that they're pulling at when they're siphoning. Like, it's still unclear to me because it really does seem to me like they're pulling at life force from that specific person, but then maybe through that they can start pulling at something else. Because
it's also, so it's not totally clear, but later in this book, and I can't remember if it's in the siphoning challenge or if it's something Palamity says later, but they describe it as the eighth house like sends the soul away, which creates a vacuum, and it's that vacuum that's drawing the power.
Right.
Yeah. So that still is not 100% clear. You don't know if it's just that a vacuum is a powerful. I don't understand how Thanergy works, man. I ain't a necromancer.
Well, and I think we can do a lot of hand wavy, but so whatever. My child just asked me if he could send me a list of things so that he could make brioche bread. And I'm like,
you're like, yes, you can make brioche bread.
Anyway, sorry if I look slightly distracted. Send me the list.
Oh, so one thing I wanted to actually say. So I think it's funny that they think Teacher is the emperor. Mm-hmm. And I will say that Teacher actually says when he introduces himself that he wants them to call him Teacher as kind of like a stand-in for the man that he hopes they one day will call Teacher.
Yep.
But one of the things they picked up on was that he's always calling them all children. And that's true because he is kind of infinitely old, which is, to be fair, that is a spoiler. Like, it's going to be revealed that Teacher's not a person, is a construct that has existed probably for 9,000 years. But I wanted to mention something that I think I've forgotten too. Dulcinea routinely calls Gideon a child. And I think it's really funny. She slips up. She fucking forgets because she's Cytherea and she is, 9,000 years old. And it's just like, that is actually a hint. People who call people children
are so fucking old that they can't see anybody who isn't 10,000 years old as anything other than literal babies.
Exactly. So I feel like that's real. The other thing that's like kind of fun and interesting about the dynamic in these chapters between Dulcinea and Silas is that so Dulcinea doesn't seem to help raise Abigail and Magnus. We, of course, know that she's the one responsible for their deaths, so that checks out. But I also always think it's really interesting that Pro punches Silas before he can fully siphon. And I feel like that's because Cytherea is an infinite battery. And that what happens when you siphon a Lyctor?
I think that it's both that he doesn't want Silas to recognize that he's starting to siphon Cytherea and that she's an infinite battery. But I also think that it's because it starts working.
Yeah.
I think both of
That
those
actually
things start happening at the same time. And I also think it's really funny that like Gideon notices he didn't even bother to pull out his sword. He just punches him. And it's like, yeah, it's because he can't fucking use his sword because he's 100%.
Dead. This is actually, okay, casually, what happens when you siphon a lictor? What happens if you are pushing, in this case, Cytherea's soul into the river? And what we know is that when a lictor's soul is going into the river, the soul that pops up in their body is their cavalier. Like, wouldn't it be funny if you actually would end up with like a transfer to like Loveday? I mean, that's not what happens here, but I think it's an interesting premise.
Oh, no. Yeah. But I don't know if you can even siphon a lictor.
No, I mean, who knows, right? The other thing that I think is really fascinating about siphoning, and this is like the main thing I wanted to tell you about because I felt proud of myself for coming up with a theory because you're my theory queen and I was like, I can give back, so we've talked a bunch about how everyone's scared of the facility. Teachers terrified of it. We've talked about the 10 billion ghosts down there. However, as much as we both think that's true, there is literally no evidence in this book to suggest that there's anything inherently dangerous down there, right? And one of the things that comes up in this chapter is actually Nibirius asks teacher why these supposed ghosts haven't come for the first house priests yet.
Right.
And one answer, of course, is that there aren't actually any humans on the first house. There's just constructs, so maybe it's irrelevant. But I wonder if they haven't found a way in. Because what we learn in the end of Nona is that there have been kind of uprisings of these devil creatures on multiple planets, including, of course, on the ninth house, on Pluto.
But what happened on the ninth house to allow them in? Like there had to be like somebody came in to like infect them or something, or they came in when the ninth house got resurrected.
That's possible. But it like they also talk about other planets that seem to be like non-solar system planets that seem to have this kind of incursion. And it seems that this has never happened before. And the reason I think this has never happened before is it's not something that Harrow learns about in Harrow the Ninth. It's not something that's ever brought up when she's actually there amongst the lictors and with God, which suggests to me that it's not a big problem that they're facing.
Until after Harrow the Ninth, it's like something that starts happening between the end of Harrow and Nona.
Right. But also the timeline of Harrow is pretty tight. It's like a year. So the other possibility is that actually it's something that happens here at Canaan House, that Silas siphoning in the facility is that first entry point that those ghosts down there ever have. And then once they infect Column, they kind of have like a route in some way that even like once he dies, like they can follow that path. Because it's super interesting to me. We know those ghosts were always down there, but they have never popped up until after this secondary Lyctor experiment. And the first instance of them is that like devil infecting Column.
I think you're right. No, you're right, because I was thinking about that too, of being like, okay, like he keeps saying like you can't have anybody empty down there, like this is such a bad thing, like children, like nobody go down there. And I always was thinking like a little bit too of like why he would refuse to go down there is maybe a little bit of his own superstition of like he was built down there, right? Of just like, I'm not fucking going down there.
It's also possible that he wasn't, though. If he was built in one of the Lyctor studies instead of the Lyctor labs, it's possible he cannot physically enter it, especially if that ladder really does lead down into the river.
Oh, right. It's possible that he can't actually get down there, but I was also wondering if it's him being afraid that because he's really just a tether point for souls, and he's a construct, and he's not actually a full soul in a body, that if he goes down there, that he is the entry point.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, that he is a fundamental weak point because he's constructed of many things. He's not, one integrated body soul.
Right. So that it's easy to push him out or have him be emptied somehow. And then that would be the weak point to let the hungry ghosts in.
This is pretty bonkers.
Because he doesn't seem to be like completely dead, but then he shows up again in Harrow in her river bubble.
That's true. Sorry, and actually much of my love from Teacher actually even comes from our second round with him because
Yeah.
he's just drinking whiskey like the whole time. And
Well,
I find
he's
it funny.
trying to drink whiskey and like trying to get drunk, and he's like, it's not possible.
It's not working. Yeah. No, you're right. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I wonder if those souls actually stayed bound together in the river after he died.
Well, he says that he's trying to get into the river, and he says 50 can score like fishes, right?
Yes. So, oh God. So maybe he's just fully trapped in the bubble and has nothing, still hasn't made it into the river. Teacher is such an interesting one.
Or maybe they completely and totally just completely fucked with him so badly that like there's no way you can unentangle those 50 souls.
Man, the whole thing is, there's no way she finishes this in one book, is what I'm trying to say. There's no fucking way. There's a
Well-
lot happening.
She'll finish it, but we won't be satisfied.
All right. You want to make a bet? I'm going with 2 more books.
No, I just want it. I want to know what happens. I don't know. That's kind of like a joke on the Reddit forums of like
People
everybody,
being like, please just tell me what's happening.
but no, of everybody like joking about like all of these like side characters, and like I would read about Noodle the Ninth.
Yes. Oh my God. Sorry,
I
my
don't
love
care,
for Noodle
Tamsin.
is eternal. I also, I would totally read just like side books about things that are actually happening in the 9 houses where it's like what you do in a day on the 7th,
Well, speaking of, I got so teased and upset, and I was like, ugh. And she probably never will, but I wish she would just like put it on like AO3 or something like after she's actually published the book. But she wrote like a whole side, like this is why it's taking so long. She wanted to make sure that like the timeline was working or whatever, right? Like obsessive writers, like I understand what's wrong with you, but also come on, just give me the damn book. But in addition to like starting with Nona as supposedly only being like the first little bit of Electo, and then being like, oh, whoops, it's a whole other book. She additionally apparently wrote another like 30 to 40,000 words.
Oh my God, which is a whole book.
On this whole side thing, which is like this basically alternate universe Electo.
my God.
To make sure that her timeline works for something. And it's an epistolary novel from Gideon.
I fucking hope she publishes these things. I love all of the side pieces. Like, there's something so enjoyable. And I'm actually surprised. I'm quite surprised that her publisher has not made some sort of like formal website where you can see her short stories, for instance, because you kind of have to dig to find them on the internet. But it's so much fun to have these like other little glances into what's happening concurrently, because this is part of the fun of an unreliable narrator is like, you only see what you get to see. There's a lot more happening outside of your peripheral view. And I want to see it all. Would I read all of these books forever and it's the only book I ever read until the end of time?
I mean, maybe.
Medium, yes.
Oh, another thing about the devil thing is Silas taking so long to come back something special about Canaan House?
Oh, I picked up on you mentioning something about that earlier in the record. I don't know. It does seem like Silas, when he's siphoning Colin down in the facility, goes too far, like is going beyond even Colum's body, siphoning other people. So I wonder if like Colum got shunted super, super, super deep. But the alternative, you're totally right, is that there is something special about Canaan House.
Because teacher said he's going to have a hard time coming back. And then Silas is like, no, he's done this before and it's been harder, like, and like harder things. And he's never let his body become corrupted. So I'm like, wait a minute. What does that mean exactly, to become corrupted? So have they seen something like the devils before, or are they talking about the fact that you could get possessed?
Yeah, because you're absolutely right that the implication is that other less adept cavaliers, other less adept, siphonees have in the past let themselves become corrupted. So there has to have been some instance of corruption that has existed. But we don't know if it's just that like anyone who ever died nearby is like floating around and can come possess you, or if it's that your body literally degrades without a soul to be inside of it.
Right. Well, and there's something weird, like I think way later on that like, I think like I'm thinking about this too because it just serendipitously
came up on the Reddit forum, something about eighth house siphoning and about how the way that Silas is doing it and the way that the Evulsion trial is and the way that they kind of refer to what Mercy Mourns like does, and like talking about how like your house sucks at the stoma like a teat or something like gross like that.
You're
and
right.
You're like, what are you talking about? Right. In terms of all of that. And then later in this book, Palamides says something about how he would say that it's like the most dangerous thing you could do, and that you should only do it with the siphoner done in handcuffs, not the one who's being siphoned.
Yeah.
So what is actually happening with siphoning?
And also, I mean, the idea of sucking at the stoma suggests that actually, that like vacuum space that's being created is pulling past the river, is pulling on something beyond even what we know of as the limits of life and death.
Truly, like you don't know what power you're pulling on when you are siphoning.
In Harrow the Ninth, right, Mercy is depicted as having her specialty be the body, as having her specialty be, like almost medicine, like, and
that
precision.
You forget that she's their
Exactly.
spirit magic and soul magic and like the siphoning and the river and all that.
And actually, the reason she's so good and precise about bodies is that she has spent the last 1,000 years learning it so that she can kill God. Like, it's, yeah. Like, this is a new talent. Her, like, OG talent was to suck the air out of the room, and she does that just personality-wise.
Reading this again and then thinking about the devils and then thinking about the way that we know that there's something super strange with the river, I'm like, what is siphoning doing?
Yep.
And where are you sending the soul? Maybe you're not sending the soul to the river. Maybe you're sending the soul beyond the river, and that's why the vacuum is pulling from beyond the river. And so you don't actually know what you're pulling from.
Yeah, this is so bizarre. I also, like, I wonder what Colum experiences. Like, is his soul conscious during this time period? Is he moving through the river? Is he swimming back towards the sound of Silas's voice saying, come back to me? Or is it just, everyone treats Colum like he's dead weight. And there's, brief moments later when we learn that he's honorable dead weight. But
right, but it's almost kind of like treating him as though going through this process constantly makes you
less of a person. Maybe less of your soul comes back each time.
Like maybe that, and also just like you become almost kind of like less, like more brain dead.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it does seem like he's always described in comparison, like they're both described as like pale and kind of like facsimiles of human, but especially Colum.
Yeah, you're right. That he is this kind of like gray, bleached out, slow moving. Yeah.
And it's just because like literally like your soul keeps getting, you keep getting your soul detached from your body over and over and over and over again.
That's right. And actually, Cam, basically later, Gideon asks Cam why the sixth house refused to do the Evulsion task. And Cam says that there was serious concern that siphoning like that would cause permanent brain damage. So we do have that intimation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true too. Oh, there was one more thing that John said that I was like, which is he thinks that Corona is somebody who could potentially be dead because she's obviously not doing necromancy.
I know. Sorry. That was amazing. Yeah, exactly. This is so funny because actually both of them really picked up on her not doing necromancy. Brooke was like, she just doesn't want to like be, having blood sweat in front of people. And John's like, no, she's just not a necromancer. But I think the idea, my favorite part of that, the funniest part of that is John is like, she is an imposter, but Dulcinea is an imposter.
I was like, she is.
Well, and also it's worse than that because, like, I know Dulcinea is an imposter, but also at no point is he realized that Protesilaus also a dead imposter.
Oh my gosh,
this is fun. There are imposters here, but we don't know who they are.
Yeah, and I love like on a reread, just reading her descriptions of, how Protesilaus is described as looking dead.
you know, and you're like never using his sword.
The most boring man alive.
The most boring man alive, taking a minute to respond to a question in a dinner
fantastic.
party, and then all of these things. And then also the way that Corona is described, and you're like, oh my God, like, yeah, obviously she's not a necromancer.
She's so vibrant, though. She's definitely not dead, but she's something. Yeah, the whole thing, fabulous.
I really like that what you picked up on, too, is like the same thing of Dulcinea / Cytherea calling everybody children. I'm like, oh no.
It's literally like every time she does
Right
it
there.
routinely. And she actually, I can't even remember when it happens. It may have already happened. But she catches herself at one point. She's like, oh, you know, I know you're just a little bit younger than I am. Like, you.
And you're like, you should have caught that. But it's like, again, Tamsin, like pointing it out, like, look what I did.
Yes, she's.
And then you're like,
This
oh,
is
right,
why
she explained
she's
it
taking
away.
so long. She has to very nitpickily write because we're going to pick apart every piece of what she says. And so far, her track record is 100%.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for more theories. They're doing very well.
Oh, yes.
But also,
Yes.
how do we keep them on the wrong track?
Full sabotage mode. So this is interesting because every couple of chapters, there's sort of a different theme and a different focal point. Like right now, John is on siphoning because it's something that happened. I'm interested to see what that they will think about next week, because next week we explore our very first lictoral study, and you get the first kind of intimations of what the OG lictors were. And then we're
gonna
the
get the
Evulsion
Gideon.
test.
Aren't we going to get the Gideon paper?
And we're going to get the Gideon paper, which
he's
is
gonna
like,
lose
if
his
that's
fucking
not a
mind.
place to spoiler. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's going to lose his mind. Okay.
Rampant speculation. Give Gideon my congratulations.
Okay. Great.
Act 5. See you next time, my little nunlets. Well, it looks like we need to go tutor Harrow in spirit magic for a while. But don't fear, we'll be back next week to explore our first Lyctor lab in chapters 19 and 20. If you want to follow along with us, our reading calendar is available on our website at frontlinefifth.podbean.com. With some cool pictures of sheep skulls that Hannah took. And you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. I'll do it again.
No. Keep going.
You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which are linked in the show notes. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the podcast, feel free to lie. Finally, if you have any fun theories you'd like to share with us, please feel free to email us at frontlinefifth@gmail.com. And with that, I'll just remind you not to unlock any tombs or enter any doors without permission, or soul siphon, because, ghosts. Bye! Frontline Fifth is a Locked Tomb podcast conceived by Marie Adamako and starring Marie Adamako, Hannah Grunwald, Brooke Anderson, and John Ryan. Our cover art was designed and created by Marie Adamako, who also edited this episode. Our fabulous music was composed and recorded by Blake Anderson. The Locked Tomb series is a completely dope-ass book series by Tamsin Muir, who does not know we exist and is in no way affiliated with this podcast.
I love that disclaimer. She does not know we exist.
No, we exist.